Welcome to the first Ryno Sports podcast of the year. I have my boy Austin Druse here. Introduce yourself.
What's up?
It's from the Sports Caboose podcast. There'll be a link in the article, description, all that. To him, we've done podcasts before. Now we're finally back in school and studio, so.
It's good to be back,
Yeah.
for sure. It has been, we've been back for 4 weeks now? We just finished week 4 of the semester, which is kind of alarming. But it is good to be back and finally in the studio because I know I haven't done a podcast, at least on my own site, since the summer. And you and I did the one after the finals, or before the finals.
Before the finals in like July.
Yeah, so it's been a minute.
It's been a little bit.
We've hit the mics. And it's time to go. Like, it's time to get a new routine. Like, you know, we're both very busy with things we have to do, but the podcast is just the necessity, man. It's the necessity.
It's just something we got to do.
Yeah. So I want us to talk about this first because we've discussed it in person. Haven't really been too vocal about it, but I want your take on Kaepernick. What your thought is.
Okay, so first of all, with the whole Kaepernick thing, what's frustrating is how polarizing it is. I think you can disagree with Kaepernick's message and still support his protest. I think you can support his protest with disagreeing with his message. I think what it's come down to is like you're either for Kaepernick because you know you just are like I feel like people are put into two categories. Either you're with Kaepernick and you hate police, or you're against Kaepernick and you're a racist, which is totally not the case. That's totally not the case. It's blown completely out of proportion. I was just, I've been frustrated with it because personally, I'm totally with Kaepernick. Like, if he wants to protest, like, good for him. Like, he has the First Amendment right to do so. He's not hurting anybody. He's being peaceful. He didn't ask for the attention, which is the biggest thing. Like, Kaepernick didn't go out and say, look at me, look at me. People just noticed it and then started asking him questions. And so it's been totally blown out, so which is totally out of his control. But, like, there are like three main arguments that are brought up with this whole Kaepernick thing. And the first one is, like, this whole military thing. And it's like, first of all, while you can see it as disrespectful to the military, you shouldn't take it as disrespect if none's given. Kaepernick wasn't protesting anything militarily, wasn't saying anything about, like, F the military. He never brought it up until people started asking him about it. And then he said, like, seriously, like, no disrespect, but that's not what my protest is about. So first of all, it's a red herring argument to throw it out there. In my opinion, I see it as a red herring. It's just a distraction to try to get people all fired up and, like, nationalists, like USA this, USA that. So the second thing is, like, saying that he isn't being patriotic. And I think you could spin that and say, well, I think he's being incredibly patriotic because he's exercising his First Amendment right. That's one of the most patriotic things that you can do. Just because he doesn't acknowledge, or he isn't saying, like, the USA is the best place in the world doesn't make him unpatriotic. It just makes him not a nationalist. And he's willing to acknowledge where our country could improve from his perspective. And then the last thing is, like, telling it. The third thing that comes up in the opposition of Kaepernick's protest is, we'll find another way to do it because you could find another way to do it. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that his protest was so inconvenient for you. Like, oh, sorry, he's inconveniencing you to watch football. Oh, I got to watch you kneel, do it in the locker room, hold a press conference. It's like, well, why? It's his form of protest. He's not hurting anybody. He's not inciting violence. He's not saying anything. He's literally taking however long the anthem takes, a couple of minutes, if just depending on your bet for the Super Bowl of how long it's going to take. He's taking that amount of time to take a knee and just say, you know what? I don't want to stand for that anthem because I don't think it's representative of the entire nation. And if that's his perspective and he's doing so peacefully, who is anyone really to say, like, you should do it differently? Because, like, you watch the game at home, they still play the national anthem. Do you stand up when you're at your house for the national anthem?
No.
You sit your ass on the couch. Like, you see all these people that are, like, everybody that's filming him on the TV broadcast, doing their job. They're not standing for the anthem. Photographers sitting there doing their job. They're not standing for the anthem. So what does it matter that he doesn't do it? And there's nothing mandated saying that he should do it. It's you have the right to choose. And when people say, back to the military thing, is the military fights for American citizens' right to choose. They fight for the Constitution, and it's within his constitutional right, his Bill of Rights, his First Amendment right to protest and to exercise his free speech. And so I don't want to rant too long about it because it's starting to become a very much overblown story for the time being in terms of just Kaepernick. But I think this dude is getting really unfairly scrutinized because he's throwing a lot of arguments are being thrown at him from all these different angles, and I think a lot of them are fallacious arguments. Whether I agree with the protest or not is completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant what I think, because I just think from a journalistic perspective it's completely unfair to have all these arguments thrown at him for exercising his First Amendment right. Another thing that just came up today regarding this similar issue on the other side was spacing on his name, Mariners backup catcher that got suspended.
Clevenger.
Yes.
I can't.
That too. He had some tweets that might have been incendiary. Maybe incendiary is not the best word. Might have been inflammatory or offensive. But even in that case, I think that was an overcorrection. And I think he too, while I disagree with what he says, my opinion is irrelevant. I think he was treated unfairly as well, because he got suspended for the rest of the year for saying that just for having a disagreement on these protests in Charlotte. And he was critical of President Obama, which is good. You should be critical of your president if you want them to improve. If you all agree with the president, that's not a good thing. There needs to be disagreement. Personally, I didn't take too kindly to his tweets, but that's my prerogative. That has nothing to do with him. That's my problem if I take it personally. So I think he too is treated unfairly. I think we need to let people express themselves and have a discussion before we start throwing all these claims at people in terms of Kaepernick. Kaepernick's receiving death threats. Yeah. Before we start suspending people for the rest of the season. You can be too PC, just like you can be too over the line on the other direction. Just the entire argument itself, I think, is just, it's not being handled in the right way. And that was a really long walk for a short drink of water. But on this entire issue, I appreciate you letting me have the chance to just kind of vent for a little bit, because
of course.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, it's a fair point to wonder why he got suspended.
You're talking Clevenger, right?
Yeah, for Clevenger to get suspended. I don't think that was necessarily fair.
I didn't get to see the tweets. I haven't seen them yet.
I can look them up while we're sitting here. But
on that point, I did put out a article about Kaepernick. As you were talking about that, I just thought of you mentioned why is that the media is blowing it out, and the whole thing is why is it a big deal? The first 2 preseason games that he was injured, he was still doing that. He was in street clothes on the bench, sitting during the national anthem. Why wasn't it brought up then? But once he puts on his uniform for the 3rd preseason game, then it becomes a big issue. And some will say that he has a reason behind it, because before that he was basically on the roster bubble, wasn't selling any jerseys, wasn't doing anything, kind of just irrelevant after the whole, was it 3 years ago that he was starting quarterback in the Super Bowl? And then he all of a sudden starts doing this, jersey sales spike, and he was basically cemented on the roster unless the 49ers coaching staff wants to become racist. I don't know if that's the deal with this, or if that's an ulterior motive and he's just kind of just playing along with it. I don't really want to say it like that, but you know what I mean by that. And or if he truly is about that life kind of deal.
So your whole point is, why is this getting so much attention?
Exactly. it's not a big issue. We've seen it before. Like
It in reality, and you're right, it's really not a big deal.
yeah,
Like, he has the right to do it. Why are people so upset about it? Like,
like
disagree all you want. Why provide death threats?
well, and that's even a little too far too. But I'm talking, why is the media covering it as much as they are? Where basically every day on ESPN, Fox Sports News, or Fox Sports 1, all that, they talk about some form of someone coming out and talking about it, like talking about the whole issue. And almost every day it's like, why did they kneel? And they start to try and overanalyze it, and they just kind of need to cut it out. We've talked about this before with other things, like I remember James Harden, something last year that he was doing that kind of just got overblown by the media. I don't remember what it was. I remember you just made a huge fit about it. He like Nike or something. I don't
Oh,
remember.
when James Harden was, this is kind of an interesting comparison, but when he had just signed with Adidas, but his contract hadn't started yet, and he was out in the public wearing Jordan brand stuff, but like he wasn't under Adidas's contract yet.
Yeah,
He had just
everyone-
agreed to terms. He hadn't signed the contract yet.
And everyone just kind of blew up. Well, the media overblew it. Like, oh, is he going to go back on his deal or whatever?
And
It's something.
and you see
that
it. And you see this
insignificant.
whole Kaepernick thing as a similar thing. Like,
It's just being overblown like that is what I'm saying. And the best comparison to it is Tebow from his Bronco days when he was popular. He would take a knee after the national anthem and pray for a little bit, and media was like, "Oh, we shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that on that grand of a scale because you're
it's like
doing
why do you
whatever."
care?
Like why
do you care?
Exactly. Why is it a thing?
I think small scale, his action, that's a good mindset. As far as the movement, I think it's definitely worth discussing. Kaepernick's action isn't that big of a deal because he's taking a knee during the national anthem. How heinous. His point, which I think more people should consider, not necessarily they have to agree, but I feel like people a lot of the time either instantly agree with him or instantly disagree because it's associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. And that's such a controversial issue in the United States right now. And I think it's a dialogue that needs to be had, and I personally think that there are things that need to be done in terms of just institutional racism. And I think it would be really, really nice if more privileged white Americans would take the time to at least consider putting themselves in the shoes of a minority in the United States, because I think that would progress the dialogue. You can't force people to not have a prejudice. They've got to come to that place on their own. And that's where the whole overcorrection thing comes with like a Clevenger situation. Like, you can't force people to not be quote unquote racist or a quote unquote bigot, because that's the other extreme. But I think as far as the Kaepernick message goes, it's worth considering. And like, no one's taking the time to say, well, why are you protesting? Not, oh, you're terrible because you're protesting. But why? Why are you protesting? No one's asking him that question. And when they do, that's a very small part of the conversation. It's, he took a knee, let's talk about taking the knee, not, well, why did he do it?
Exactly, that's the thing. And I want to go back just a little bit. You talked about the white privileged people, and you've seen the couple things from Michael Bennett recently, right? Where he took a press conference and said, I want to talk to whoever like leads the police and like talk about their training. You've seen that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this came out literally a little bit earlier today at 10:39 a.m. Central time today. He came out, Michael Bennett again said that it's time for a white NFL player to join the protests, saying, his exact quote is, you need a white guy to join the fight. The white guy is super important to the fight. For people to really see social injustice, there must be someone from the other side of the race who recognizes the problem. Because a lot of the times is just one race saying there's a problem. Nobody's realistic about it. That's kind of what you were just saying. Like, you need someone from the white privilege to come over and join that.
Well, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think if more, you could run into the white savior complex that my girlfriend Dakota was talking to me about earlier today. Is like, that's an issue you could run into, but it's not the responsibility of the oppressed to stop the oppression. It's the responsibility of the oppressor to stop the oppression. So if more white people, and this is not to say that white people as a whole are responsible personally. Yeah. This is Caucasian Americans are privileged, and they do not encounter the same issues that those of color encounter in the United States. That's just a fact. Like, it's a fact. I mean, you just look at likelihood to be stopped and frisked by police, likelihood to be declined on a bank loan. You look at likelihood to be shot and killed by the police. It's just higher in terms of people of color. Now, there are stipulations that come with those statistics because, unfortunately, high crime areas where a lot of like stop and frisk policies and profiling exists is in areas that a lot of minorities do reside. And I think that they are not directly related. Like, it's not a high crime area because a lot of the minorities live there. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it is unfortunate that a lot of the high crime areas also happen to be a lot of the where white people are the minority in the area. So it's a really tough issue, but I think if people would just appreciate the terms of what's being discussed, that would be very beneficial.
Yeah. So I think we talked about that enough. So you think you got any last words on
Well,
that?
I did pull up the Clevenger tweets.
Okay.
And these are his words, not mine. The first one is, quote, "Black people beating whites when a thug got shot holding a gun by a black officer, haha, expletive, cracks me up. Keep kneeling for the anthem," close quote. And then the second tweet was, quote, "BLM, Black Lives Matter, is pathetic again. Obama, you are pathetic once again. Everyone should be locked up behind bars like animals," close quote. Now, the second one, I could see where that was a little far because there's a lot of connotations that come with that.
Especially the whole animal thing. That goes a little far.
And that's the thing is, like, I think the biggest issue, and then we can move on to something else because we've been going on with this for a while, but I think we shouldn't end it because it's inconvenient. We should continue to talk about it.
Yeah,
but there are some other things we want to talk about. But I think you can't have the comparison of black people to animals because people that did that and were involved in segregating African Americans in the United States, that was only like 60, 70 years ago. A lot of these people are still alive. So it's not that recent, it's still very recent in terms of American history. And that's why it's an issue that's still alive and well today. And I think until we see more privileged white Americans appreciate and try to at least attempt to put themselves in the shoes of a non-white person, we won't see any change. You can't force that on people. You have to let them get there on their own. But that's just my challenge, is to you're never going to fully understand. Because that's another thing that white people need to understand. You're never going to understand. You will never understand. We will never understand. I'm saying I too, a white individual, I will never understand. But it would be helpful for me to take the time to attempt to understand, to try and appreciate. And I think that's the only way that this is going to get any better.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to a couple different things. I got two NBA things. I don't know if you saw it pop up just a little bit ago, but let me get the exact quote. Kevin Garnett is expected to retire after 21 years. Won the ring in 2008 with the Celtics, MVP in 2004. What do you think? I know that they were talking about they had buyout talks yesterday, and so apparently those are going really well for him. Do you think, since he's going to retire, do you think he obviously probably going to stay with the Timberwolves because he's got the contract where he turns into some front office role after?
Well, I think
are they buying him out of that one too?
I'm not sure. I have to read up on it. But what I will say is, first of all, that Hall of Fame class in 5 years is going to be ridiculous with Kobe, Tim Duncan, and now Kevin Garnett. But I think the Timberwolves would be very wise to keep him around Karl Anthony Towns as long as possible.
Yeah.
Because if Karl Anthony Towns can develop into that kind of player like Kevin Garnett, that's going to be very beneficial for Timberwolves fans, especially because they're not going to lose Karl Anthony Towns if they can keep the talent that they have on that roster. The Timberwolves in the next 4 years are going to be scary if they're healthy.
Yeah,
that is a ridiculous roster, especially picking up Tom Thibodeau to be the head coach. Ridiculous.
Especially with Thibodeau, they got a bunch of length to be great on the defensive end. I want to talk about the Timberwolves now before we jump on to something else. What do you think? Obviously, everyone's touting them as the next big breakout team kind of thing, like the Warriors are this year or a couple of years ago, where they're kind of come out of nowhere, they're crap, turn into superstar. Do you think the Timberwolves can have that potential? Because they got the young pieces, they got Dunn, Wiggins, Levine, if he can turn on his shooting more, Anthony Towns, and then I can't remember who their power forward is. That's a great starting lineup. I don't know much about their depth. They got Rubio still. If they can turn Rubio into some pieces too. But what's your thoughts on the Timberwolves? Are they? What's their timeline?
The West. That's the problem. Is they play in the West. They play in a very, very deep conference. They could turn into that story, but I think they're going to need some help. They're going to need the Spurs to fall off, which I don't think they're going anywhere. The Clippers aren't going anywhere if they can stay healthy. The Warriors definitely aren't going anywhere. So they can be a 55-win team and never make it to the finals. They could be a 60-win team and never make it to the finals. And that would be incredibly unfortunate because they have a great roster, and I would love to see them be able to do something because that'd be crazy to have the finals in Minnesota. It's just been such a down organization for the better part of my lifetime. So
yeah,
that would be really cool. I don't think it's going to be a surprise because people have seen this over the last couple of years, and when they got Thibodeau and people saw what a maniac Karl Anthony Towns is, they're like, holy crap, these guys are going to be really, really good. So I don't think it'll be a surprise. Whether they're able to actually break through the West is another story, and I won't believe it until I see it.
Yeah. With what I think of when I think of the Wolves this year, I almost said Warriors, is the Pelicans from the second year that they had Anthony Davis. They got the one big piece to build around, but they didn't build around him when they first got him. They had good potential pieces like Drew Holiday, Bledsoe, and they got someone else from the Clippers. I don't remember who else they got. They got someone that was they're supposed to be really
Eric
good.
Gordon.
That was it, Eric Gordon. And then it all just kind of fell apart for him. Someone was injured at one point, and then another one got injured kind of thing. Obviously, I don't see that happening with the Wolves because they're building from inside with their chemistry. So I think they're going to have a better chance at that. They're going to have more of a Warriors-like build. But they got all that athleticism, and I don't know how their game is going to – if their game is going to evolve to what the NBA is changing to, where it's a three-point game.
Well, athleticism never hurts.
Yeah, true.
And they've got some people that shoot. Rubio –
Rubio's okay as a shooter.
Not a terrible shooter. Could be better. Levine could be better. Chris Dunn can really shoot.
Yeah, he's
Karl Anthony Towns can shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Wiggins rather somewhat okay. But if they could pick up or somehow get a couple of bench guys that can just light it up off the bench,
like a Mike Miller.
Yeah,
James
like a
Jones
Mike Miller,
deal.
like a James Jones. You're not going to play big minutes, but if we need a couple of big shots, they're going to be in the game. Plus.
Yeah.
Just to spread the floor. If they can create space for Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine out on the wings, it's going to be crazy. What I think they'll try and do is with Thibodeau is they're going to try and force a lot of fast break points because they're going to use their length to be just a black hole defensively. And so what they'll do is try and just be a black hole and
just kind of
get out in the open floor.
Yeah.
Because if they're able to do that, that'll just be ridiculous. Because it's just going to be dunk, 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 dunk.
Yeah. And obviously, it'll be a lot like that. And I'm looking at the stats from last year. They stayed pretty close with the Warriors 2 out of the 3 games they played. They only lost by 13 and then 3. It's not too bad at all. That's really about all I can think of. You got any more thoughts on the Timberwolves before we move on to one more thing? The NBA.
I was just saying it, but it's just so disappointing that we're going to see this young roster come up And we don't know if they're ever going to even make it to the finals. Because Golden State's not going anywhere. And if they can keep pulling in superstars and have a big 7, then, the Spurs are never out of the realm of possibility until Greg Popovich is gone. So they're going to need some help in terms of the Spurs, the Clippers, the Warriors of the world to knock each other out, to kind of give them a chance. Not that they need a free pass, but until they have that playoff experience, they're not going to beat those teams. So they're going to need some help early on, or they're going to have to take some lumps in the playoffs. They're going to need to take getting swept once or twice before they can finally break through.
And this is the one thing, unless you got something else, I want to talk about with the Wolves. Anthony Towns is the only one that really has any playoff, let's say playoff as in air quotes, experience, because he went to the national title with Kentucky, wasn't it? Or no, he went Final Four.
Lost in the Final Four to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot which year he was there. So that's the farthest that any of them's gone. Wiggins was 1 year at Kansas. They lost in the Sweet 16. I'm pretty sure.
They had the second round, something like that. They had an early exit. And even then, people saw it as a disappointment. He was kind of the Kansas team.
Yeah, there's not much else around him. And then Chris Dunn at Providence, he was there for 3 years. Pretty sure they only went to the dance twice out of those 3 years, because I know he didn't start that much as a freshman, didn't really play, and I know the last 2 years they've been kind of higher seeded and really knocked out kind of early. So there's no real person outside of Towns there.
And that's the thing too, is that's college tournament experience. That's not NBA playoffs where you got to play a team 4 to 7 times, and they get to play you 4 to 7 times.
It's like exactly. That's why I said playoffs in air quotes.
And that's the thing. To that point is even with that, that might be giving it too much credit because they don't have NBA playoff experience. Guys don't just come in and just wreck the playoffs their first year. Very seldom does that happen. So that's why they're gonna have to take some lumps, and I'm just really hoping that they can get a title, at least one. At least one. While
they're in their primes, at least.
Yeah, and I think they got to give Thibodeau a chance. Yeah. And I think he's done a remarkable job in trying to reinvent himself as a coach, because things in Chicago didn't really end well for him. So
no, he was still one of the best coaches with some of the best teams in the East when he was still at the Bulls. They were top 3
with some of the worst luck and health.
Exactly. Derrick Rose going down twice does not help.
Joakim Noah going down.
Joakim Noah. Did he have Powell at that time? No, Powell came in after.
Powell came in after.
Yeah, but still, just not enough luck in the injury department, which is what he's kind of hoping for with the Wolves being so young.
I was hoping that Wolves could have gotten Jimmy Butler. That would have been so cool.
That would have been
so cool.
So, yeah, because then they could have shifted everyone down one position, played Wiggins at the power forward and Levine at small forward, Jimmy Butler. That's an insanely long lineup just on defense.
And then you got a superstar. And then when Towns develops, you've got 2.
And if Wiggins develops, you got 3. That would have been insane if they got Jimmy Butler. But I think that's enough Wolves talk for right now until we get to do some NBA previews a little later in the year. One last thing about NBA before we stop talking about NBA. Heat say they didn't clear Bosh to return. Does that do anything for the Heat? How does that alter their outlook on the playoffs, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, my sincerest apologies to Chris Bosh, because that's a very unfortunate situation, and I don't think he's ever going to be able to play again, because it's just such a risk that comes with that blood clotting disorder that he has and the medication that he has to take. So, first of all, that's an awful situation. Secondly, I don't think the Heat, they can make the playoffs. I don't think they will. Chris Bosh, we were having this conversation earlier. Tyler Schuster and I, one of our buddies, we were saying that he was saying rather 6 years ago when they formed the Big Three, could anyone have seen this happen? LeBron goes back to Cleveland, gets a title. D Wade ends up in Chicago, and Chris Bosh might have to retire. Could there have been more different narrative than what we were expecting here in not 5, not 6, not 7. So I don't think the Heat are really going anywhere. Who do they have? Who's on their roster?
Justice Winslow, Goran Dragic, and Chris Bosh are the only 3 real names. Oh, Hassan Whiteside. Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, but Hassan Whiteside is
Luol
not.
Deng is still there too.
He's not going to carry you to like a deep playoff run. The dude's he's DeAndre Jordan. Like he's not going to carry you.
He's DeAndre with the better offensive game.
Yeah, but even then, like
not by much.
He still doesn't have much of that. He's not like Shaq.
No,
where you can just dump it to him and he's going to take you to a title. Like, I mean,
he's a defensive guy. That's basically he's Dwight Howard from a couple years ago.
Exactly. Okay.
Dwight Howard on the Magic.
Let's compare that. I think that's a good comparison.
Are we going
Dwight
with the Magic,
Howard
though?
of 2010 when they went to the finals, and this
Okay.
Miami Heat team, not a bad comparison, because you got one dude down low, and then a couple other people on the wing that can kind of do something with like a couple of guards, but no like spectacular stars. And it's a primarily defensive big guy. I just, you kind of feel for Miami, but then again, you're kind of like, well, you guys have had a lot of success, and you had LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh all at the same time. So I really don't feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for Chris Bosh. I do not feel one lick a bit of sympathetic for the Miami Heat or Miami Heat's fans. They have been so blessed over the last decade,
ever since
15 years
since
they
D-Wade
got
got there.
D-Wade. So 14 years ago.
Yeah, 4 titles in that span.
Yeah. They've had Dwayne Wade, Hall of Famer. Shaquille O'Neal, Hall of Famer. LeBron James, Hall of Famer. Chris Bosh, probably a Hall of Famer.
Most likely. Yeah.
Most likely a Hall of Famer. Like, that's just... I feel no sympathy for Heat fans.
No.
All the sympathy in the world for Chris Bosh. None for Heat fans.
Yeah.
I hope you guys win 9 games. Because that would be a great season in terms of what they've lost. And I feel no sympathy for Heat fans. Especially because I'm a Pacers guy. How do you think I feel?
Your team looks good, though, on paper. But
I mean, that's irrelevant.
Yeah,
but
that's a different
watching
topic for a
LeBron
different
and
day.
D-Wade knock them out of the playoffs and go and win titles, and I'm like, oh,
cool.
we had the 1 seed, though. We're the number 1 seed, though. I feel no sympathy for the Heat whatsoever.
No, I feel it. I'm just looking at their roster from 2010 Magic, and obviously Dwight Howard's the biggest name on there. It's his 5th year in the league. The second biggest name, Vince Carter, but it was his 11th year, so he was just past his prime, or just in it, however you want to look at it.
Rashard Lewis,
Jameer Nelson, J.J. Redick, and Ryan Anderson. Ryan Anderson's still kind of a big name now.
But Ryan Anderson's just a shooter.
Yeah, he's 6'10", but a shooter. But
like that, I mean,
that's all he did.
That's a good squad, but they're the intramural team all-stars. Like they're not that good.
They're not going to beat the Cavs this year, kind of deal.
Yeah, and it's like what's weird is that team was able to like come out of the East after with the Celtics, who had just come off a title, or was that the 2009 finals? 2009 finals. They lost. The Celtics team that had just won the title, and then they had
2008 was their first one, and then 2009 was their second one for the Celtics, because that was the second year of the Big Three for them.
Okay, so was it 2010 Magic?
It might have been because that was
so
when
the Celtics were kind of coming off of those 2 runs.
Yeah,
and then you had LeBron and the Cavs, who could never get past the Celtics, so they were kind of thrown out. But like Atlanta was always good during those years. They were like a 4 seed, but they always lost early. But I mean, not to say that like to downplay the Magic then, but it was surprising that roster made the NBA Finals.
Exactly. Like that those 5, 6 guys, however we named off.
And that could be this year's Miami Heat. They could be those guys. They could be that Magic team. They won't, but they could be.
Is Spoelstra still the coach of the Heat, right?
Yes.
Okay. He's not as good as Stan Van Gundy was in 2010.
No.
That's who was coaching that team in 2010.
No disrespect to Eric Spoelstra, but he's not.
He's not that high yet. Like he's not that good yet, I should say. He's not up there as a coach, and that's why the Heat will not progress as far as that's their ceiling is 2010 if Spoelstra clicks it all together. The floor could be 76ers. That could be there's literally
There's so much room for this season to be either completely unexpected in terms of really good or trash balls.
There's only
they
one.
Could be trash balls.
Yeah. There's only one certainty outside of injuries happening, and that's going to be Warriors Cavaliers in the finals for the fourth straight year.
It'd be third straight year, but
and like the ninth straight year.
I'm not writing the Warriors home.
I'm not either.
I'm not writing them home to be in the finals.
I'm not saying that they're going to beat 73 wins. I'm just saying
I'm not writing them home to be in the finals.
Who's going to
Cleveland will be in the finals because they have LeBron James on their team.
He's going to go for like 15 straight years. But who's going to knock off the Warriors? Who's going to be that team this year? I do not think
Clippers are healthy. They could.
No way.
If the Clippers are healthy, they could. If the Spurs are healthy, they could.
Potential.
Not saying they will, but they could.
Almost said last. Does OKC have a chance?
What's the one thing that killed the Warriors in the finals?
The finals, depth of bench, as well as
that. But I'm talking about
Cleveland.
In terms of play.
In terms of play, threes. Because Cleveland shot more threes than the Warriors and just made more because they got hotter.
I would disagree. I would say it was a defensive presence at the rim.
Well, that too, yeah.
What's the one thing they lost in this offseason? Their
Andrew
defensive presence at the rim.
I would
say
they
picked up another guy that hits a lot of threes but does not play defense at the rim. So if they go against a team where, I mean, yeah, like you got it working, you got all these dudes hitting all these threes, but say they got an off night like they did in the finals where they had multiple, where Steph and Clay were not. I should just call him Clef.
Let's just call him Clef.
Let's just call him Clef. The Clef brothers weren't hitting.
Brothers.
And LeBron and Kyrie lived at the rim. And now you got Draymond Green to try and stop them.
Draymond might be able to shut down LeBron for a half. I'm saying just for like a half. Maybe he'll get that energy, kick him in the nuts a couple times, knock him out of the game like he did to Steven Adams.
And here's the other thing, too. What is Kevin Durant's kryptonite? LeBron James.
Yeah.
I do not see the Warriors winning this title, the title this year, and I don't even think I don't feel they get to the finals because I think this year's Warriors team, even though they picked up Kevin Durant, isn't as good as last year's Warriors team, who beat Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and Steven Adams. Like I think the Warriors are going to be wildly overrated, and the thing is I will say that until I see them win the title.
Yeah.
Or lose in like a 6 or 7 game series to LeBron.
If they go 6 or 7, that's probably a good year for them, though. Too.
If they go 6 and 7 in the finals, like okay, you get to the finals, that's an amazing season.
Yeah.
Like,
but for this Warriors
people
team,
talk about LeBron's record as if it's like this terrible thing that he's got. These,
who did he
3
have?
and 4 in the finals? But like, dude, he got to the finals 7 times. Jordan only got there 6.
Yeah, he's got there 7 times in a row. Is the most important part about that.
Well, yeah, like he went to the finals now 6 straight times.
So, yes, yeah,
6 straight times.
And
to the
one
finals.
in his 4th years in the league.
See, that's
like
crazy.
That.
That's crazy.
Or 6th year. Sorry.
So if the Warriors, to my point, if the Warriors get there, that's not a disappointing season because the finals is an anomaly.
Yeah. It's all who's a better coach and everything.
What I'm saying is like I'm not going to call it a disappointment if they don't get that far because I don't think they're as good as people say they are. They have too many people on the team to really like who do you go to? Obviously the open man, but it's like then who are you going to stop? And that's the question.
Yeah.
That's the question. Who are they going to stop? Until I see them actually win it all or like go 6 or 7 games in the finals, I'm going to say that they're overrated. Yeah, and call it a hot take all you want. I'm just saying, like, during the regular season, the numbers they're going to put up is going to make me look like a jackass for making that statement. It's going to make me look dumb. But I said Steph was like a little, like, I've been so back and forth on Steph. And last year I hated Steph. I used to love him. I hated him last year because I thought he was overrated. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying, oh, he's just the second coming of Christ. But
he only has offense. That's it. He can't
exactly.
defend.
And like he didn't show up in the finals, and they blew a 3-1 lead. And
blew a 3-1 lead?
They blew a 3-1 lead, and so I was like, oh, cool. I got backed up, and like for a while I was looking like an idiot. But then it ended up being okay, even though I picked the Warriors to win like 3 different times.
Mhm.
After like games 3, 4, and 5, I picked them to win. I think I even picked them to win in 7 after
Yeah.
game 6. So I looked like a dingleberry, but like,
I remember your first one was in 7. And I'm like, all right, but.
Until I'll just say it again, like until I actually see it happen, I'm gonna be skeptical about the Warriors. I don't know. Call me a hater. Call me a hot take person. Like call me like just a moron. But until I see it happen, I don't know.
I'll just call you all of them at once. Skip Bayless.
Dude, easy with that dirty word, dirty phrase.
Oh, I know. I got 2 more things I want to talk about. One NFL, one college football. Is Bill Belichick the best coach ever? I mean, obviously he is because he can win with anyone. But he's on to his about anyone at quarterback. I should phrase that better.
In New England,
not
in Cleveland.
That was also his first real coaching job, though. The
Cleveland years. Granted, I didn't really pay attention then because I was a youngin, but
yeah.
The Cleveland years were very beneficial, I feel, to Bill Belichick because you got to suck before you can get better. That's plain and simple. Like, you got to be terrible until you can get better. Very seldom do you see people like Steve Kerr where his first year coaching, they win the finals.
Yeah.
Very seldom do you see that happen.
Does not happen.
Especially in football because it is 100% team-oriented, and you need all the luck in the world. So, seeing what Bill Belichick is able to do with rosters that you're like, who is this dude? They signed some dude from a parking lot league like on Thursday, suit him up on Sunday, and he rushes for like 600 yards and 8 touchdowns, and then they cut him on Tuesday.
Jonas
and you're
Gray,
like,
you're talking.
Yeah, it's like a Jonas Gray. Like the things Bill Belichick is able to do from game to game are second to none. And like, he's lost the last 2 AFC championships he's been in.
It's because it was in Denver, though.
Or two of the last 3.
Mm-hmm.
But they were in Denver.
When he's at home, he's good.
When he's at home, he's unbeatable. And Denver's a tough place to play. And the Patriots have struggled beating the Broncos on a consistent basis for like 15 years because it's just matchups. And like the Broncos had the most high-powered offense in the history of the league in 2013.
Or 13, yeah, that's right.
And last year, they had one of the best defenses in the history of the league. So it's like you got to throw those, and maybe not throw them out, but you got to take that into consideration. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say Bill Belichick is up there with a Tom Landry or a Mike Ditka or a Bill Parcells or Vince Lombardi. He's up there. Like, the dude's got 4 Super Bowl wins. He's got 6 appearances. He's had incredible teams that have won. He's had not so great teams that have won. He's been able to create Tom Brady. If you've watched Tom Brady's draft combine and thought, I can't believe that guy might be the best quarterback ever, it's probably because of Belichick. Like, Belichick just has this way of just bringing out the best in players. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I don't want to make the comparison that like you call someone the best before their career is over, but he's one of those people where you might be able to make that argument.
Yeah.
The dude's an incredible coach.
And thinking of it, like, he's never really brought in that big profile guy. Like, we're both Broncos fans, so for example, Peyton Manning, he never brought in a Peyton Manning. He inherited Drew Bledsoe. He drafted Tom Brady. The one guy that he's grabbed, the biggest name, was Randy Moss on Moss's downslope of his career.
And that's one player.
One guy.
That's one guy.
At a wide receiver. Not even like a huge thing at the time, because at the time it was more of a running league. Because we had that was like the year CJ or Chris Johnson went off for 2,000 yards. AP was almost at 2,000 yards. It was that era, and he had Randy Moss. He's like,
and Brady
hook it
threw
up.
50 touchdowns.
50 touchdowns.
Which
like
is
20
insane.
of them were to Moss, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's insane.
He's got an incredible defensive mind. And I think another thing, too, that's great about Belichick is and granted, I can't believe I've been saying all this because I can't stand Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
But I also kind of like him in the sense that, like, the dude just wins ball games. And, like, I love that he cheats. Because
I love that he cheats.
Why wouldn't you? If you can get away with it, if you can win Super Bowls, why wouldn't you? People like act all high and mighty. I'm like, oh yeah, for real?
You would do the same
wouldn't
thing.
too?
Yeah.
You wouldn't too if you could get a Super Bowl? You wouldn't do that also?
Yeah.
So the dude, he hires unbelievable coordinators, and he has a great staff. I don't know how they got hit with this terrible luck with quarterbacks this year, but they're still going to be in the AFC Championship game. They're still going to be there.
They might run the table. Honestly, I'm going to look at their schedule here in a second.
Do they play Denver this year? That's a game they could lose. But
I-
Brady will be back.
Yeah, but I believe, if I'm correct, they're playing them in New England, and that's the thing.
They're going to light up Simeon. They'll win that game. They would win that game
because they'll have. But if you really think about it, it's not just that they've had bad luck with quarterback injuries. They lost Gronk for the first 2 games. They haven't had their left tackle. I just straight up lost his name. Not Solder, but the other one. I can't think of it. I just straight up blanked it for a second.
But they're 3-0.
And they're still 3-0.
They're 3-0. They're going to be 4-0 with Edelman at quarterback.
And that's if they don't pick up Matt Castle.
Goodell.
Think about it.
Goodell, eat your heart out. Eat your heart out, Roger Goodell. I love that the Patriots are doing this. It makes me so ecstatic because suck it, Roger Goodell. If the Patriots win the Super Bowl, that is going to be the biggest L in the history of someone's life. Roger Goodell. Dude, if the Patriots win the Super Bowl, Roger Goodell, delete your Twitter account, delete your Facebook, delete your Instagram.
Delete your commissioner status of the NFL.
Delete your commissioner status. And, dude, you might as well just go live in a bomb shelter because you're never going to be able to show your face anywhere ever again.
So I just looked it up, and they play the Bills next. The Bills are 0-2 right now.
The Bills are garbage.
They're garbage.
The Bills
Tyrod Taylor.
Garbage.
Tyrod Taylor was supposed to be this really good dude. Or was supposed to be like, he hit that ceiling finally, and he just looks like trash.
Bro, props to Tyrod Taylor for getting his money.
And
Because now it doesn't really matter. Like he still has to perform to touch that 90+ million.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think when he signed that contract, I texted you. I was like, I don't think he'll sniff 30 million of that.
No.
But still, dude, props to Tyrod Taylor. Get your money. Get your money.
Yeah, and the thing with the Bills especially, is that they have no protection for him. So that's the biggest thing. I think Belichick will exploit
the biggest thing
hell
wrong
out of
with
that.
the Bills is they have Rex Ryan as their head coach.
And Rob Ryan is their defensive coordinator.
Rob Ryan is, first of all, he's a garbage defensive coordinator. He's wildly overrated because his defenses are often last in the league, if not
like the
close
Saints
to last
last
in the
year.
league. They're terrible.
Yeah.
I don't like him as a defensive coordinator. I think Rex Ryan is a much better defensive coordinator than Rob, and I think Rex Ryan is a much better coordinator than a head coach. He needs to not be a head coach because he just needs to worry about the defense. He needs to
Great defensive mind.
Great defensive mind. And he needs to not hire his brother.
Yeah,
I don't know why that their offensive coordinator got fired after week 2 when they put up like 30-something points.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Because their defense gave up more. If you score 30+ and lose, your defensive coordinator needs to go.
Yeah.
If you're going to fire somebody, it's your defensive coordinator. Because the offense doesn't surrender points.
Yeah.
So why in the world would you fire your offensive coordinator when you guys are scoring like that? They made Ryan Fitzpatrick look like Joe Montana.
Yeah.
It was sad.
It was that bad.
How does he keep his job?
He shouldn't. He should be fired. But just their schedule is pretty easy. The only two real games that I see that are problems are 3 games, I guess. The Jets, always a problem for them. At the Broncos and at the Steelers. That's not too bad at all. But so we're gonna talk about college football real quick. 2 things. Thoughts on the season. Thoughts on Lamar Jackson. I'm gonna start with the season first, though.
Well,
we'll finish with Lamar.
It just goes to show that the preseason poll is the biggest waste of time in all of college football. Like, if there's one thing that would be the biggest waste of time, it would be creating a preseason poll because it does not matter.
Not at all. Ask North Dakota State.
Yeah, because Iowa, eat your hearts out.
Was Iowa overrated last year?
Dude, Iowa's overrated all the time because they don't play big boy games.
Okay, Cowherd.
And yeah, well, okay, fine. But Colin Cowherd is totally right when he says, like, Iowa is the fake ID of college football because it's totally true.
Yeah.
They're posers. They're posers until they schedule an Oklahoma and beat them like Ohio State beat them, and then start doing that on a regular basis. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that they're posers. Even look at Nebraska. Nebraska is an incredible program. They schedule Oregon. While it's a down year for Oregon, as it has been the last couple, it's still a perennial program, and it's a ranked team. Iowa schedules an FCS opponent. Granted, it's North Dakota State, and they run the table in terms of FCS, but it was an FCS program. If you're supposed to be Iowa, or if you're supposed to be what Iowa thinks they are, and you schedule that game, sorry, you're not getting in the club, dude. And then to lose.
That's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing. To lose is just, you're done. Like, I got no respect. No respect for Iowa, and I will not hide it. No respect.
No, I didn't have any. When they were talking about them being top 4 last year, I was like, that'd be the stupidest decision to ever make, to put Iowa over Stanford, who plays more ranked games and stuff. And all, like, they're just their strength of schedules, looking at them compared, that'd be the stupidest decision, not even considering anything else, any other factors in that. But the biggest thing for me with Iowa, you can schedule FCS teams. Alabama does it. SEC teams do it. But
don't lose.
Don't lose.
Don't lose.
Don't
well,
lose.
no. Honestly, I think any FBS team that schedules an FCS team, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
It's
Play a big game.
Yeah.
This is not the fault of the coaches for scheduling those games.
AD.
No, it's not.
Not even.
It's not the AD. It's the fact that you can't be let in if you lose 2 games. You're not in the college football playoff, and that's the problem. It needs to be 8 teams. And they need to not factor in when you lose. Because you look at Ohio State last year, they probably should have been in there over Michigan State, but because they lost late in the season, they got bounced.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
That's
not
fair.
fair.
No.
Michigan State lost earlier in the year. They probably had a worse loss than Ohio State losing to Michigan State. That's a good loss.
Yeah.
You can never really say a loss is good, but like if you had to quantify a loss as good, that would be a good loss to Michigan State for Ohio State.
Yeah.
And to miss the playoff, that was dumb. It was dumb. And it needs to be 8 teams. Because to have 5 power conferences and only let 4 teams in and not have any stipulation that teams from the same conference can, like you can't allow 2 teams from the same conference is ridiculous. And I think that alleviates this whole thing. Because then you can actually have the best teams in there and you don't have Iowa that gets in.
Yeah.
And Michigan State at the same time. And it's like, what are you doing? Or was Iowa? Did they just miss
Iowa
the playoff?
Iowa was number 5 and then got destroyed by
5.
Stanford in the
They
Rose
got
Bowl.
destroyed in the Rose Bowl. Okay, so but like the fact that Iowa was even considered, but like
even that they were top 10 was the part
but
for
if
me.
you have 8 teams and Iowa's at 5, like
They're playing Michigan State again.
yeah, they have to play 2 games to at least to get to the national championship.
Yeah.
Whereas instead of Iowa plays 1 and they get hot and then they have to play in the national championship, like it just
Like
to win 1 game and then you get in the national championship. If you're going to do a playoff, do a playoff and have more than 2 or 3 total games.
Yeah. And with that the playoff thought, this is what I was thinking that they were going to do. They're kind of testing the waters because everything, especially in sports, is revolved around money. So they're kind of seeing, how much money are we going to get? That's why they changed the dates on when the games are to basically, they're just testing it right now. At least that's what I'm thinking. Like, when's the best time to play these games so we can get the most money? And then they're going to be like, all right, 8 teams in like 3, like next year or the year after, they're going to be like, all right, we're going to expand this now. We got the Final Four set. We can finally expand it.
Mm-hmm. But I think ideally you have a 8-team playoff because you have the 5 power conference winners and 3 wild cards.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's a perfect setup.
Yeah. Would you do any buys in that? Or, I mean, you probably can't actually.
No. With 8, you wouldn't.
No.
With 10, you would.
10? So would 10 be a good idea just to get the top 2 teams off? Get a buy, but that would also expand this season a lot. That's the thing.
I don't see a problem with it. Yeah, but that's the thing too. Is you're not going to play teams on short weeks with this. So every team you add to that playoff, it does add an extra week. Like it's 2 teams. You add an extra week to the season, so that's a factor. But
what about adding in requiring all Power 5 conferences to have a championship game and making that the playoff?
I don't think you need a championship game for Power 5 conferences.
No. Make that the playoff though. That's the start of the playoff.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then so the first 5 Power 5 get in, and then you get the 1 wild card from wherever. So like a Houston kind of thing, or Now Louisville's in the ACC. Like Houston or like a outside of the Power 5 guy, come in, you make a 16 playoff off that. Top two get a bye.
That's not a bad idea.
Then the bottom 4, like re-rank them after the championship, obviously.
It's a thought. I mean,
it's all thoughts.
I think anything's better than a 14 playoff, though.
Yeah,
really.
There's a lot of different ways.
The only thing that's worse than a 14 playoff is the BCS. The only thing that's worse than a 14
That's
playoff.
the only thing that's worse.
But yeah, as far as the college football season goes, Oklahoma, overrated. Notre Dame, overrated.
What about Michigan? We haven't made a decision on them, but the reason
I want Michigan to win it all so bad, so I'm not going to say
You're
they're
not gonna
overrated.
say that?
I want them in their Jordan uniforms with the craziest dude in the history of coaching, Jim Harbaugh, and his sweet Nike khakis to hoist that trophy, because that would just be awesome.
Is he switching to Jordans, though? Isn't he switching to Jordan khakis?
Well, Nike, Jordan, whatever, but they're making his khakis now.
Yeah.
Instead of Walmart.
That's true. Instead of Walmart.
Which I'm sure Walmart's pretty upset about.
Probably. They're losing that whole $20 from Harbaugh. But, yeah, anything's better than them. The reason I asked about Michigan, though, obviously I'm a CU fan, being from Longmont, Boulder area. They had them on the ropes early in the first half of like 28-4 or 28-3.
And got blown out.
And then just got blown out. That's why I asked.
Well, and you know why that happened? Because CU overrated. They
Very,
destroyed CSU in the first week, which is always disheartening because I never favor CU in that matchup. But
Ever.
then they win and they go 2-0, and I'm thinking, we're going to have to start hearing about this, aren't we? Everyone's going to say the CU is so good, and if they would have beat Michigan, I would have been so sad because I was like, that's going to just wreck my timeline because I'm just going to see all this stuff about how CU, we're going to win.
I wouldn't have gone that far with that, but I would have been bragging about that for like a week.
Oh, dude.
Straight up be like, CU beat Michigan, let's go! Like that kind of thing. But,
yeah, but I don't know. Michigan, I mean, until they play Ohio State and Michigan State, you can't really make a claim because those are the other two big teams.
That's the same with, Bama played Ole Miss. That's kind of a big deal. But I'm talking like other schools like that. You can't gauge them until you get a real game in with them. No one's really played a real, true, really good game yet. Outside of Ohio State and Oklahoma.
Well, Michigan State, not to say that Notre Dame wasn't a bad team, but they're overrated. And Michigan State gave them the work.
Yeah.
For most of the game.
And so did Texas when they played Notre Dame, too.
Texas and Notre Dame went 2 OTs, but, like, it was Texas.
It was Texas the whole way, and then they just kind of let them back in.
But it's Texas. I mean, they're not great.
No. They're not. They're top 20, but they're not. They're not Oklahoma, Ohio State.
I got a couple of... or just at least one prediction this weekend, and it comes in the case of your CU Buffaloes.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to get the hands from Oregon in those sweet Donald Duck-looking uniforms.
Those uniforms look dope. And
they're just going to see them running up and down and up and down.
It'll probably just be a blur.
And CU is going to get shellacked this weekend.
Probably.
Waxed.
Oregon always waxes them. They got, like...
Waxed.
Yeah, it's usually about... 60 points dropped on him. Real quick, you talked about preseason poll being overrated. How about these early Heisman and Lamar Jackson? Just do thoughts on those real quick.
And again, early Heisman's stupid because it's like, oh, watch out for Christian McCaffrey. Watch out for Deshaun Watson. Well, Deshaun Watson's been not very good this year. Yeah. Clemson has been not very good. They've kind of had a hangover and they haven't woken up yet. Haven't lost, but they've not looked great.
They about lost week 2 to, I can't remember who they were playing, but they about lost there.
Troy?
Yeah, I think so. They didn't blow them out. That's the thing. But what I was more talking about, like, watch lists are fine, but when people say, hey, Watson's going to win it, that kind of thing, that's more of what I was getting at.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Don't like it?
I don't like it. It's like, let's wait until, like, November before we start talking about it.
Yeah. When it's closer to being...
When it's closer to actually being decided and voted upon.
Last, like, 5 weeks.
Yeah. But right now, if I had to make a case... You can't pick anybody other than Lamar Jackson because the dude has more touchdowns responsible for than anyone else. And
more than 120 teams.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson's the real deal. Talk about a team coming out of nowhere. Louisville is ridiculous. Not only is Lamar Jackson a beast,
their defense
is crazy. They ate Florida State alive. Florida State was favored and got destroyed.
They shut down.
Was Florida State favored?
Yeah, they were number 3. They were favored by like 3.5.
Okay, so like a field goal game, but they got demolished.
They blew them out by 60.
Gave up 62 points.
Yeah,
That doesn't happen.
Especially with Florida State, perennially good defense, and they destroyed them.
I'm going to make some picks for this weekend because I got the schedule coming up.
Are you talking college football?
College football.
All right.
I think
What's the first team, and we'll both do picks.
Nebraska, I got them losing to Northwestern. They're favored by 8.
I don't know of that one. Nebraska definitely is not going to run the table. I've seen a couple bowl predictions where people think they're going to the Rose Bowl. Again, those are stupid.
Not
and
happening.
It's not going to happen.
Not early in the season.
No, because
they haven't played anybody.
No.
I mean, Oregon, but like that's not really Oregon.
No, they're not. They haven't played like an Oklahoma State, Michigan State kind of thing. But.
USC is going to drop to 1 and 3 because they're going to get blown up by Utah.
Utah?
Yep. 24 ranked Utah is going to beat USC.
I think Utah. Utah still has Chucky Keaton. No, I'm thinking Utah State. But yeah, Utah is usually pretty good. I think that's
Wisconsin, Michigan State. That's a big game. It's at 8 and 11.
Just because I hate Burbine? No, just because I don't like Burbine. Wisconsin. Hope you listen to
this. I think I'll go with Michigan State in that one. Florida State, South Florida. Florida State. If you lose to South Florida, delete your account.
South Florida is actually
if you're Florida State and you lose to South Florida, delete your account.
Yeah.
Alabama's playing Kent State. If they don't win that game,
Julian Edelman is going to come back as an alumni quarterback and play for them, and then the Patriots on Sunday.
Georgia, Mississippi. I think
Mississippi.
I think Ole Miss wins that one, even though they're 1 and 2.
I don't think Georgia's going to have as good of a game as they did from their freshman quarterback last week.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they almost lost last week too.
I think Michigan beats Penn State.
Yeah.
I think Florida beats Tennessee.
That's the biggest game. Florida,
even though they don't have Luke Del Rio, I think Florida beats Tennessee.
Yeah, Florida hasn't lost to Tennessee in 8 years.
The last time Florida lost to Tennessee, the iPhone had not been invented.
It's been that long.
Russell Wilson was 16 years old, and the number 1 song on the charts was "Goodies" by Sierra.
That's hilarious.
Facebook had not been invented the last time.
What, so that 8 years or what? How many years has that been? 10, that had to have been more than 8. 10 years maybe? I don't know. It's been a while.
Nope. They were saying it on Mike and Mike the other day.
Only 8 years.
That the last time they won.
Oh yeah.
Like
all that.
It was a piece. They were referring to a piece on SB Nation that was talking about like the 17 ways the world was different or something. That the last time that Tennessee beat Florida. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Florida on that one.
Yeah, I don't see Florida losing even if they lost Urban Meyer.
Oh,
even on a down year, they still beat Tennessee.
Here's one: Auburn, LSU. Bro, this is a battle for your job, and I got Auburn beating LSU, and I got Les Miles going out the door.
This week or at the end of the year?
This week.
So if he loses to Auburn this week, he's gone, you're thinking?
No, but he could.
His seat is hotter than it is right now.
Yeah, much hotter.
Much hotter.
But I got Auburn. But, like, if Auburn loses and drops to 1 and 3, Gus Malzahn might be getting fired after that game. Which would be ridiculous, but it could happen.
He doesn't have a quarterback. He doesn't have a Cam Newton type guy like he had when Newton was there.
Okay, Houston's favored by 34.5 over Texas State. I'm going to roll with Texas State winning.
You're talking just on the bet, right?
I'm just joking. Houston will cover. They'll score 50 on Texas State.
If they allow Texas State to get more than 15, I would be surprised. Even garbage time 15.
I think Okie State beats Baylor. Louisville, if they don't beat Marshall, they're favored by 26.5. That might be a little generous for Marshall,
especially since Marshall's 1-1. Did you say Oklahoma State over Baylor?
Yeah.
Is Seth Russell still the quarterback? No, Jarrett Stidham still the quarterback.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, then I'd take Baylor in that.
Stanford. I'm just going a lot of upsets. Stanford, UCLA. I'm gonna roll Stanford. My boy McCaffrey.
Dude, last time Stanford UCLA played, McCaffrey dropped like 400 yards. Or like 350, something like that.
I got A&M over Arkansas because I hate Brett Bielema. And Washington, I'm going to have them beating Arizona. Yeah, those are like all the major college football games.
So on A&M and Arkansas, then I got one stat that I want to talk about real quick. Arkansas has knocked off a top 10 team 2 years in a row, and they're trying to make it third. And this is like their one game that they have the best chance at winning for that. And you think that's not going to happen? Just because it's A&M?
I don't like Brett Bielema, so I'm going to say no.
Fair enough.
That's my sole reasoning. I have no statistics. I have no argument. I don't like Brett Bielema, so I got Arkansas losing.
Fair enough. So the one
That's all I got, dude.
Yeah, that's all you got. Yeah.
And the only reason I don't like him is because he was coaching at Wisconsin when Wisconsin would beat Nebraska.
so you're just
And
like,
it always just made me sad because I was salty.
yeah, salty. Yeah,
Just petty. It's straight pettiness.
straight
Straight pettiness.
All right, so here's the stat that I want to talk about just for a minute or so. So, Belichick obviously won with Garoppolo and Brissett, and maybe if he wins next week, he'll add to this stat. But since Brady became a starter in 2001, with Tom Brady, he's 172-51 for 771 percentage. It's pretty good. Without him, 13-5. That's how good Bill Belichick is. He can win with anyone. Does that stat surprise
you?
you?
In New England, he can win with just about anyone.
I'm pretty sure those 5 losses are probably on the road.
Those 5 losses are with Matt Castle's 11-5 season.
So outside of that, we're just spot starters. He's 2-0.
Well,
Or 5-0, sorry.
yeah, so that would be because Matt Castle came in. Brady started week 1 against the Chiefs and tore his ACL.
Towards
so
ACL.
Matt Castle as a starter went 10-5. So yeah, that would make him after week 3 13-5 without Brady, including Castle, Garoppolo, and now Brissett. So yeah, in New England, he can win with just about anybody. But he's also had the fortune of having Jimmy Garoppolo, who's going to be ridiculously good if he can stay healthy, and Brissett, who's not a bad quarterback. Matt Castle
is all right.
He's all right. So
he's a Tom Brady type. That's the thing.
You think, like, yeah, Belichick's pretty good. And Josh McDaniels, incredible play caller.
Not a good coach. Not a good head coach.
Well, you're just saying that because you're a Denver fan. And
A little bit.
He's garbage with the Broncos, but tried to destroy their organization. But that's a discussion for another day. But just the play calls they have, so basic, and are still able to just do so well, and they just utilize their personnel so perfectly. There's not a whole lot else you can say. Just a fantastic job.
And
Props to the Patriots.
Yeah, the last thing about the Patriots is, you know the new rule about 25-yard touchback? That they've kicked it off 18 times. No one's got it past the 25. And they've only had 5 touchbacks.
Help you be 3-0 because you're not giving them short fields.
They've had 10 touchbacks. That's it.
That's impressive.
Very impressive.
It's impressive.
Belichick's using his wits, but all right, we've been talking long enough. So I think we're going to go. You want to plug your website?
Yeah, if you all listening would mind checking out my blog and podcast site is the Sports Caboose with Austin Druse. That's sportscaboose.wordpress.com. Check it out. I got blog posts. I got podcasts. I'm probably going to start posting videos eventually when I get around to it. But I've got an interesting take on some things. I like to argue stuff from all different types of perspectives. So you're going to get some variety of stuff. So be looking for that. I try to post at least a couple times a week. So give me a follow. Check it out.
Link will also be in the description, in the article, and everything like that. And I'm going to couple this with why the Browns are terrible right now and probably put it all up.
They trash, dog.
What? They trash? Yeah, they're garbage fire. But thank you for listening. This has been the Ryno Sports Talk Podcast with Austin Druse. Have a good rest of your week.